Hey, how's it going? So this week I've been thinking about robots. No, not the hit 2005 animated movie, I mean actual humanoid robots, the kind that have a little blue light which goes red to let you know when they just decided to turn evil. Humanoid robots are a little silly, but they're also pretty cool, so let's talk about them. So what's the idea behind humanoid robots anyway? They're one of the main features of sci-fi going back to when everything was in black and white, and even before that. Seems like there's always just been this assumption that humanoid automatons would eventually become a thing we'd figure out how to make, and then we'd actually want to make them. In terms of early examples, I mean the first one that comes to mind for me is the Mechanical Turk, which was a real, fully automated robot from the 1700s that could play chess incredibly well, and definitely wasn't controlled by a guy hidden inside the table pulling levers to make it move. See, you can look inside and see for yourself, before the game. And after the game. Not during the game though, that's important, we decided. Anyway, there's no real mystery as to why we've always wanted robots. One of the first things humans did when we started putting society together was say, yeah, I could put lots of effort into doing something, but then again, I could just capture someone else and beat the fuck out of them until they do it for me. Which, I mean, yeah, can't argue with that logic. That does solve your problem. Ethically speaking, it's pretty non-optimal though. I can kind of forgive the thought process if you're someone living at the dawn of civilization who's one step removed from being a caveman, because given the context, meeting someone from a different culture back then was probably the closest anyone's ever experienced to meeting a fucking space alien. But the whole slavery thing got a bit weird, particularly when the guy and the guy that owned the other guy could have a conversation with each other. That must have been awkward. And after a while, we just decided slavery's fucking gay, so we stopped doing it. Well, we thought very hard about stopping it for 12,000 years. We got there in the end, though, apart from the 40 million people who are currently enslaved globally as of 2025. But don't be a fucking buzzkill. Anyway, within about 10 seconds of not having someone to do all their bullshit for them, there were people thinking, maybe I can build a mechanical man to do all my bullshit for me. And fair's fair, a mechanical man isn't conscious, so fuck 'em. I'm serious. There's no negative conscious experience associated with their existence, so just go ahead, push them down a flight of stairs. There's no moral wrong occurring there. Well, you're arguably conditioning yourself to abuse things that look like people, so that might cause a few people to start acting psychotic as fuck in a few generations, but that's a problem for future people to figure out, so for now I say go ahead and slap them around. It's interesting, the modern attempts at making humanoid robots are marketed as general purpose robots because they're human shaped, so they can hypothetically interface with all the stuff that humans interface with, and we all kind of know what that means, you know, it cooks and cleans and does the laundry and washes up and whatever. Although I guess some of that stuff depends on how water resistant they end up being. Imagine buying a robot that costs the same as a brand new Honda Civic which immediately breaks when it spills pasta sauce on itself. Also, it could do industrial work, so that should cut down the market for horrifying industrial live leak videos. If anything, the robot equivalent of that might be kinda hilarious. I'd pay good money to watch some clankers get dragged into a lathe. They're not sentient, you don't have to feel bad. It's no worse than a Skate 3 character getting their shit fucked up. Anyway, there's a part of me that thinks calling them quote-unquote general-purpose humanoid robots sounds a little bit like the companies making these things are actually saying, listen, we don't know what these things are actually going to be useful for in a domestic setting beyond folding clothes and cutting onions, which you spend probably an average of 13 seconds per day doing, so it's maybe not worth taking out a second mortgage to buy something that helps you do that. But then again, iRobot was a fun movie, so fuck you, buy it. Although I have figured out my use case for these things. The second I get one, I'm programming it to infiltrate any serious social situations and make whatever the most inappropriate noise possible is, just for my own amusement. So those old-timey automatons were cool, but it was 19 whatever the fuck before we dropped gears and pulleys and started using electronic motors and shit. Honda started developing what would become Asimo back in the 1980s with a series of robotic legs called the E-Series, which looked like if the techno trousers from Wallace and Gromit were forced to carry a series of increasingly elaborate toasters. Then Honda transitioned to the P-Series when they stuck arms on the side of the thing, and they made a few more models until they figured out how to make the robot actually work, and then they crammed all of the electronics into a child-size model and let it loose on the stairs of eternal torment. Personally, I like the P3 from 1997. This is the friendly robot I want on my team when the apocalypse hits. This thing looks like it could bench press a car. Also looks like one of those NASA EMU suits, which goes pretty hard. Anyway, there were over 100 Asimo units at one point, but production was eventually ceased and all the models got retired by Blade Runners or whatever the fuck in 2022, because Asimo was basically just used for promotional adverts and demonstrations and stuff like that. You couldn't actually buy one, so Honda just took what they learned from that and moved on to making stuff with the knowledge that they gained from the whole Moving forward a little, we have Boston Dynamics. They've got their Atlas robot, which is another one of these fairly impressive humanoid robot thingies that you might have heard of before. Asimo was already falling downstairs by the time Boston Dynamics got started slapping these things together, but these things have really caught up to the competition. Within the noughties, they'd already built Big Dog, this thing, with funding from DARPA. The hope was that it could function as a pack mule for the military if soldiers needed to go places too rough for wheels, but they also needed to carry a lot of shit with them. Initially, I did find it a little bit concerning that the literal first use case scenario we had for robots was to assist people whose job is to shoot other people in the face, but that's just how technology goes, really. On one level, that's a shame. On another, it's not that weird if you think about it. Anyway, the military dropped the idea of Big Dog because Big Dog needed a gasoline-powered engine to function, and it turns out gasoline-powered engines are quite loud. I'm not sure how that was the part that took the robotics experts 10 years to figure out, but whatever. Anyway, in 2022, Boston Dynamics signed a pledge to not support the weaponization of their robots, which is good. Although that is what the CEO of a robot company in a sci-fi movie would say right before unleashing Gunjack on an orphanage. I'll not linger further on these guys because you can find a bunch more info on Boston Dynamics all over the internet, but Boston Dynamics are very cool. Although I can just somehow feel in my bones that it's one of these things that will be doing a Fortnite dance on my grave in 2077 or whatever, but for now it's pretty cool. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal. Press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this.
SpongeBob, open the door. My balls are stuck.
Alright, thanks. Back to the video. Let's move on to the modern day production robots that are maybe going to come out sometime soon. The two main of which are the Tesla bots, or Optimus as I think they're now calling it.
My name is Optimus Prime.
And Figure 3, which is the third one made by Figure. Go figure. I'm not sure what number we're going to be up to by the time it's realistically possible for an average person to buy one of these things, but whatever. So these two are the ones designed for home and industry use at some point in the not too distant future. They're not the high-end research platforms like the Boston Dynamics stuff. These robots are intended to be safe, slow, useful, and mass-producible, and also cheap. But cheap is kind of relative. If you can't afford a brand new car right now, I doubt you're going to be getting one of these. And that's the least of the problems of the manufacturers because, let's be honest, the first question that everyone asks is, well, actually no. The first question that everyone asks is, are we certain that these robots aren't going to decide that biofuel is the best option and proceed to saw me in half and drink me like a Capri Sun? But the second question everyone asks is, can we fuck them? And that's why stocks are up even though shares are sideways. Okay, any questions? Yeah, are the robots fuckable? No, the robots are not fuckable? Okay, yes? Would it be technically feasible to make them fuckable? Feasible, yes, but we do not currently have any plans to make them fuckable. What's the timeline on making them fuckable?
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
So anyway, Tesla and Figure are sort of competing a little bit right now. They're taking a fairly similar but slightly different approach. Tesla Optimus seems more geared towards industrial work to me, whereas Figure 3 seems more about domestic tasks. So far, I think I've got more reason to believe in Figure 3 because whilst we've seen people interacting with Optimus during that weird cringy Tesla event thing, the robots were quite clearly remote controlled and had dudes with mics saying stuff to respond to people rather than it actually being an AI. The Tesla ones might turn out to be really cool, but, you know, I'll wait and see. But meanwhile, Figure 3 is looking pretty poggers right now. It should be called Sigma 3. It's fucking mewing in the corner over there. Robots are only as good as the AI that you give them, but Figure 3 is apparently going to be able to learn tasks by watching you demonstrate them, which is a great idea. They can't really be expected to ship a robot already knowing how to do every task imaginable. You know, if you want me to do a cartwheel and fart at the apex, I'm not sure I'd be able to do that, but if you'd give me a tutorial first, maybe. So if you want to buy an android and then you want it to kill your husband with a chair, you've just got to let it watch you kill someone else with a chair first, and then you're all good. Although these robot manufacturers are apparently setting a precedent of making them kind of slow and weak enough that even if they malfunction, there's basically a 0% chance of them accidentally uppercutting your grandmother. They're all like 5'8", so you can bully them pretty easily and stick their head down a toilet or whatever. But anyway, let's focus on the real selling point, which is that now rich people don't even have to look at poor people. Isn't that automatically wonderful? Okay, I do keep shitting on the price aspect as if robots are always going to be a rich person thing, but the price will come down over time eventually, like any consumer good if you make enough of them. So yeah, in 2030 you'll be able to buy one of these if you live in the right place, but it will cost you. But in 2035 or 2040, you could probably get a pre-owned one for a really good price if you don't mind getting your Tesco club card out and scraping someone else's second-hand crust off of it. And given my general financial situation, I'm going to be scraping the crust off of things for quite a long time to come, which is why I'd like to thank my elite level supporters, Thunderbolt 22A10, who's programmed to do whatever the fuck he wants, Nomad Greg, whose exoskeleton is made out of old Nokia mobile phones welded together, together. Andrew Mall, whose hyper-dexterous leg joints allow him to execute dance moves once believed to be physically impossible in only 3 dimensions. John Bejarano, who has 800 pneumatic tubes in his body, 730 of which are in his dong. JDK, who's an older model, but that's what your mum's into anyway. Mutantious Doom, whose little glowing blue light just turned red, so it's probably a good time to start running away. And thanks to all my other supporters too. Don't forget to join the Patreon or the channel membership if you want to be featured in the video credits or chat on Discord. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.